Football and Ford, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. It's never ordinary around the Eagles. They got a lot happening as they get ready for the Cincinnati Bengals this week. Adam Caplan is here from the Inside the Birds podcast, which you can get on all podcasting platforms. And, of course, their YouTube channel. Just search Inside the Birds. Adam Caplan, of course, for another edition of Football at 4. Vic Fangio speaking earlier today. The coordinators speaking earlier today. We'll take a look back at the win over the Giants. Did we learn anything new? We saw new stuff from Fangio. We saw a couple different wrinkles from Kellen Moore. Let's start with the offense there, Adam Caplan. Did we learn anything new on offense about this team?
Question, Mike. Well, we saw the Van Sumeren situation. They're sticking a fullback in there. Kellen Moore has used a fullback before in his offense. Not a lot, but he's used it. I thought that was interesting. We saw Hurts under center. That's something that Kellen is big on. We saw this in Week 1. I mean, Week 1 was the Kellen Moore game. Like, everything that manifested itself from training camp, and we saw it in the offseason. We saw it there. And then, Mike, since then, we haven't seen a lot of it. A little bit here and there the last 3 games, and then we really did see him under center. That was good to see. I think Greg Cosell had a number who will be with us tonight for Patreon at 8 o'clock. Patreon.com/InsideTheBirds if you want to sign up. Greg I think Hurts after Week 1 was only under center 11 times was the stat he had until this past game, where he was there a number of times. So that was good to see. Look, the deep passing game is there. You know it's going to be there. Hurts made an unbelievable throw on 4th and 3, like big-time NFL throw. But the same issues with him, Mike, not seeing it well. He dropped back 22 times, took 4 sacks, attempted 18 passes. There are at least 5 or 6 passes where the ball's got to come out of his hands. He waited. We saw this. It was really bad last year, Mike. His regression last year was mainly tied to holding on the ball too long, not being decisive. And we're seeing that, Mike, a lot this season. It's just something they have to continue to work through. It's just not much else we could say. The tape shows that. We've seen it. I know Jeff. I talked to Moshe earlier today. Jeff watched it. That'll be a centerpiece of our show for tomorrow. We're going to talk about it, what he saw. Again, we're going to talk to Greg Cosell tonight. I know our Patreon members are going to have a lot of questions for him. I do as well. We'll get through that, but the thing is, the protection was pretty good for the most part. Jalen's got the arm to make these throws. It just, I don't know why he doesn't do it, but the quarterback on the other side didn't do it either. He was worse, Mike. Daniel Jones was horrendous in that game. He just stared down pass targets, was not willing to throw, and Brian Daboll had seen enough. This is one of probably Daniel Jones' worst games as a Giant. Where he had made strides over a number of weeks this season, boy, he was really bad this past game. So, see, here's the thing, Mike, before we move on here. Was it the Eagles' offense good? Was it a combination of the Giants? Did they break down? Well, they didn't tackle well. We'll get the running back in a second. Or was the Eagles' defense this good, or was it Daniel Jones that bad? I mean, that's the problem with these games, Mike. You never quite know when you face a bad team what's really real and what's not. You learn that over a number of weeks. And, by the way, the Eagles don't play a team with a winning record till Week 11 again, and that'll be Washington.
Yeah, the Giant thing's tough because they are a pretty good defensive team. So, yes. I mean, the fact that they scored 28 points and they did it now, they're the worst against the run in the league. And the Eagles just said, all right, well, you can't stop the run. We'll just run it all over you. But what did you see from the running back in the run game? Yeah,
Mike, it's interesting. And it wasn't that they came out running. It's that they had success. And this has been the story with Barkley. A 1-yard run, a 2-yard run, a 4-yard run, a 55-yard run. This is just the way that it's gone for him. It's every game, it seems he has this major explosive run, or he has a couple of them, and that's going to happen. And the other story, Kenny Gainwell, look, I know people are going to say, well, a lot of this came when they were up big, but Gainwell looked good when he came in. He did a good job. He had 13 carries. Yes, some of them garbage time with the big league, but, he's improved. The thing is, this is the final year of his rookie deal. This is a big season for him. And he's looked really good. This is a guy, as we first noted when he was drafted, that Sirianni pushed their front office for him, and this is his guy now. Look, they've got Will Shipley there, who's a little bit more explosive. In fact, he's a lot more explosive than Gainwell, but Gainwell is a better pass protector. He's a more accomplished running back, and they've got a really good running back room. Like, we don't talk about that enough. We always talk about Barkley because he's dynamic. but they've got a deep and diverse group. All three of them bring something different. Gainwell's the best pass protector, by the way, of this group. And it's and by the way, Shipley had a lot of work in garbage time. I wouldn't 8 for 15. That doesn't really mean anything to me. But overall, the running game is really, really good. The running game right now is, I wouldn't call them a running team or a passing team. They're still trying to figure out what they are and what their identity is. But they certainly can lean on their running game if they want to, if that's what people are looking for.
Well, yeah, and you said, what's their identity? You asked the question, what would they be without Saquon Barkley? And that almost paints you into the corner of what their identity is.
Mike, they don't want to learn what it would be like without Barkley. How's that? I don't think they want to learn about that.
Yeah, 14 passes in the game the other day. 1 target to Devontae Smith. Obviously, the big throw to A.J. Brown. But, man, the wide receiver room has gave him nothing the other day. But what about the offensive line? Fred Johnson is in there. They lost Mekhi Becton. How did that hold up?
Yeah, my bad. 18 dropbacks, 14 passes. Yeah, so, you know what's interesting? Becton must be feeling good because he was seen outside the locker room greeting the players. He was wearing sunglasses, but he was greeting like every player like he was fine. Now, we'll have to see when they get on the field this week whether he could practice, but that's a really good sign that he was good enough to be able to stand up and handle that. But boy, Tyler Steen did a really good job once again. Fred Johnson, after a slow start, really hung in there. Their offensive line did a really good job against a pass rush. I know. Look, the Giants have also had an interesting schedule. They've had a good schedule where they've piled up a lot of sacks against some not-so-good offensive lines. But, look, sacks are sacks. They've got the job done, but the Eagles held up really well without Mailata. And then, obviously, after Becton left with a concussion. So, you know what? The Eagles are learning a lot about Tyler Steen. We were sort of questioning, like, what's his future? But in 2 games where he's had to play off the bench, particularly the Saints game, he was phenomenal. Like, exceptional, Mike, Tyler Steen.
Yeah, I like how, by the way, Fangio today almost threw Daniel Jones under the bus when he was asked about why more sacks. He's like, well, I think Jones holds the ball a little longer than he would have liked to.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and then we'll get to that in a second. But just finish off the offensive line. They have to feel pretty good about their offensive line right now, particularly the depth, because they didn't really know what they had, but now they know. So, finishing off, that's the offensive line. Now, the pass rush, Mike, you have to feel good in that. I know that they face 2 bad offensive lines. We get that. We'll acknowledge that. But there's sort of a pass rush by committee. It's working. They're doing a really good job. They have to feel really good about that. To me, that's a really good sign that guys who had not been playing well at all, quite frankly, were extremely disappointing, like Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith, are getting better. They don't have a high-end pass rusher. That's not going to change. We're pretty certain of that. But by committee, if Bryce Huff could continue to play well, just don't hurt the football team. But Bryce Huff's got to be better. He's not going to be $17 million a year better, but play better, which he's doing. Nolan Smith contributed as a first-round pick 2 years ago. Jalen Carter, by the way, with his big pass rush moves that he had, it's some really good. I thought Mike, his power was really evident in this game, and he did a really good job there. Obviously, BG could still rush, and Moro Jomo in nickel when he comes in for Jordan Davis. So, and Jordan Davis did an excellent job against the run. The run defense, Mike, really improving. That's important because Tyrone Tracy, the rookie from Purdue, really had been coming on, and the Eagles shut him down. So I think overall, Mike, you got to be encouraged. I know there were a number of plays where Daniel Jones could have hit an open receiver and didn't do that, and Vic talked about it. He was holding on the ball too long, but that's something to see with Joe Burrow this week. We'll talk more about this on Friday's show, Mike. That's something that, and I'll be interested to see if they play more man coverage or are they going to play more zone against the Bengals. The Eagles are a zone-heavy team anyway, but they really played a lot of zone in this past game.
Well, we'll talk about the back end here because Fangio also said, why sacks? He says it's a good mix of coverage complementing the rush. So he liked that, and he mentioned, kind of singled out, Cooper DeJean in the role that he's had and Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah, and the axiom has been around for, a century. Pass rush has got to be impacted by coverage and vice versa. So if you don't have a pass rush, it's hard to be a good coverage team, and that had really plagued the Eagles. People are wondering, what's the problem with the pass rush? Well, why are they giving up plays on the back end? Well, the pass rush. So now they've gotten better with the pass rush. Quinyon Mitchell continues to get better. A little bit inconsistent over the first 4 games, getting much better now. I was talking to a scout that had his area. Actually, talked to the guy yesterday who said that, look, when he played man, he played off. He did not play ever press coverage. That's something he's just at this level. You got to be able to play press. They're going to have to do that eventually. That'll come. Darius Slay tweaked that foot, and then he came out to start the second half, so that was a good sign. We'll see if he's on the injury report this week. And by the way, Zach Bond's got that shoulder injury. That one is a concern, Mike. That we don't have any information on that one, so we'll have to see. And that, if for some reason he cannot play this week, Mike, that's when we start seeing Jeremiah Trotter Jr. You know that's and obviously Burks too, because you generally only play 4 inside backers. It's not sometimes only 3 depending on what the situation is against your opponent. So they're pretty deep there, by the way. And they're better. I'll say this, Mike, for the much maligned play they've gotten over the years at inside backer, they're clearly way better than they were last year.
Well, and then, Fangio was asked today about Nakobe Dean and the role that he had. I mean, they used him in blitzes. We haven't seen a whole heck of a lot. And he said, he had a good day Sunday blitzing. We'll see if they expand on that at all.
I love that. They're not a big blitzing team. Their numbers aren't really big against the blitz, but they're a selective blitzing team. They're a simulated pressure defense where they feign that they're going to blitz and they drop off. They drop off. You see that from them. So, look, this was a good game plan. I thought their coaching staff did an excellent job. Now, if Daniel Jones would have pulled the trigger on at least 10 passes, but we could have had a little bit of a different result. Eagles still would have won, but maybe Daniel Jones wouldn't have been pulled. But the bottom line is, look, they won. They're facing a team with Joe Burrow. Now, I will tell you, I'll give you a little bit of early intel, that the Bengals have major protection problems for Joe Burrow. Orlando Brown, their left tackle, they don't know if he's going to play. He's got a calf injury. Marius Mims, their first-round pick, who was drafted to be a left tackle, he's playing right now because Trent Brown's out for the season with a torn patella. They have nowhere else to go. They're using Cody Ford as a left tackle. He's a guard right tackle. He's completely out of position. 3 straight weeks now, the Eagles will face a team with a bad offensive line. So, or an offensive line that's struggling. The Browns used to have a great offensive line, but not anymore. They're struggling with injury. So the Eagles have had the benefit of some good matchups here.
Adam Caplan, football at 4. Also, Britton Covey's been out, but, man, the punt returner, Cooper DeJean, is doing a nice job.
Yeah, boy, I did not hear Michael Clay today, but we have to remember Britton Covey was the NFL's best punt returner last season, so when he's ready to come back from that fractured scapula, we'll have to see what they do. But, boy, DeJean was explosive, Mike, last week as a punt returner. It's funny, before Covey, it had been a long time since they had good punt returns, but, man, they're loaded there, so they'll have to have a decision to make. And then, let's not forget, Covey before he got hurt, he was getting time in the slot. And now that, I guess, Paris Campbell is cut, when they make that decision to activate Covey, will he be their 5th receiver? Because right now they don't have a 5th. You know what's interesting, Mike, before we get out of here, most teams almost always have 5 receivers or 6 on the 53. You don't need to have 5. Obviously, if you have an injury, then you got a problem. You're taking a risk. But it's not. The Eagles have carried 4 on the 53 before. It's rare, but they've done it after looking these things up. In fact, not only did they only carry 2 tight ends on the 53 last week, there was one week. It was 2019. Believe this or not, it was when Goddard was hurt. The only tight end they dressed was Zach Ertz, and they actually went with it a 6th. They used a 6th lineman like 6 or 7 times. So the Eagles sometimes do some things that you make you scratch your head, but they've gotten away with it.
There you go. A little look back at the Eagles' win over the New York Football Giants, 28-3. They'll now turn their attention to a 3-4 Bengals team. We'll preview that with Adam Caplan for Football at 4 on Friday here on the Sports Bash. All right, Adam. Thanks, buddy.
You got it. Thanks.
All right, there's Adam. And, of course, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast.